Hello.
Yes, hello, this is Stefan.
Hi, how's it going?
Just fine, thank you.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Yeah, no problem. It's going to be the second time around for us, I guess.
Yes, it is. The first time around was back at Prague Power USA in person, and it's great to be able to catch up now to be able to talk about some brand new music from Falconer.
Yeah, and I must remember that time at Prague Power. It was the best show that we have done and the best experience for the band. I mean, the familiar, it just felt like a big family, everything, and we're so well perceived and welcome there. So it's fond memories, really.
Yeah, I just remember that being one of the best weekends that I had from the fan perspective, and finally being able to see you live, and of course with that being the last live show from Falconer, just meant so much more to me like that. And it's amazing to see that in all that time, and now being able to see here in 2020 at the end of June 26th, coming up here with Metal Blade Records, there's going to be a brand new album from Falconer from a Dying Ember.
Yeah, that's right. It took us 6 years, but it was really worth the wait, I would say.
Oh yes, and I've gotten the chance to be able to check this album out over the last couple days, and it's everything that I love from Falconer. I mean, it's got the great speed behind it, it's got amazing ballads and acoustics behind it, it's got great epic moments behind it. It's just everything that I love in a Falconer album in one album.
Yeah, that was really the plan, to bring all the elements into one Falconer album, because I knew back in 2017, 18 maybe, that this were going to be the final and last Falconer album. So I want to make it as good as I possibly could, and then let it just take the time it needed. So it took a couple of years more to get it perfect.
I was actually not aware of that. This is the last Falconer album?
Yes.
Wow, what an amazing note to end on it with this being the last album. I mean, I think I'm going to be able to appreciate it that much more then. I did not realize this was going to be the last album.
No, it's not really official yet, but it's gonna be, so...
Wow, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of blown away with that. The fact that I've been able to check it.
More questions, I guess.
Yeah. Now with knowing that news, I kind of threw me a little bit off track. But I love that though, because
yeah,
I love that real conversation behind it.
One question for you: why did you take the decision to end the band? Yeah, that's a good question. I felt that I've done Falconer music for 20 years, and I love the music and everything with it, but I also love the movie Braveheart, but I don't want to watch it for the 18th time. So time to move on and do something different, just to push yourself into having the possibility to try something new out, because I know that I'm more than capable of making more Falconer albums, but is it a point? I think I'm done with it. I've made a perfect final album. Let's end it there, and then see what the future brings. So it's not like we've gotten upset with each other or really tired of the band or anything. I love the music, but I want to do something different too. So I know that if I were able to do a side project, which would be no problems, I would eventually write material good enough that it would force me to think, okay, I've got a record deal with Falconer and this is a really good song. I'll try to adapt it into Falconer style. And then you're just back into square one again, the safe decision. And if I don't have the safe decision, I can go in an opposite direction because I have nothing else to think about, so to speak.
Oh, I honestly do love and appreciate that decision behind that, especially for those reasons. And I always love it when, it can be sad to look at from the fan perspective, but I do love when a band does that, because especially with an album like From a Dying Ember, it's leaving things on a high note. It leaves the fans wanting more. And instead of feeling like there might be some mediocre music that might happen, and you got all this material behind you and it starts to get stale, you start to not want to do it anymore. You'd rather leave on a note that you can really truly be proud of, and I think this is a great note to be able to do that on.
Yeah, thank you. Then it seems, according to you at least, that I've managed to row this boat ashore, so to speak. That was really my goal. I didn't want to end the Falconer saga with a so-so album where the fans would say that you can really hear that this is the last album because they've really lost the touch and the flame has died out and so on. I wanted to really release a really, really, really good album at the end. And then, of course, it's never going to have the same impact as the first or the second album because we're not 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, that's always going to happen. No matter the project, no matter what anything is. I mean, when from that initial release to the end of where a band goes, like in this situation, I mean, there's always going to be a bit of a different kind of impact that's going on there. But, you know, as long as that quality is there, I mean, to me, that's what's always most important. I mean, the fact that every single Falconer album has enough differences behind it, but each album completely stands out on its own. And then being able to take all those great elements and being able to throw it onto this album one last run, that's such a great way to be able to approach this.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh yeah, of course.
This time around, I knew that we had to have one Swedish song that was really, really as folkish as possible, and I think I achieved that, and actually got some keyed fiddle into it also. That is pretty much the truest folk instrument in Scandinavia. So we managed to get that. And then also one more ballad. I think it was the last ballad we did was in 2006. I mean, that's 14 years ago. So the last album really had to have a killer ballad. And I mean, it's one of the best songs I've ever done. I don't play a note on it, but who cares? It's just a perfect ballad.
Oh, yeah, and I was actually going to bring that up, too. I mean, the fact that it has been so long since there was a Falconer ballad, and, I mean, with this being the last Falconer ballad, I mean, this really did stand out on the album to me, and I really feel it is one of the finest Falconer songs in the discography.
Yeah, I mean, the piano playing was perfect. I mean, Mattias' voice, that's really where he belongs in that kind of music. I mean, the emotions it gets into that song, and the lyrics itself is one of the most personal lyrics because it's about the passing of my grandmother the other year, when I came to realize that I should really be glad that I mourned her death that much, because then the love really meant something. It was worth to be mourned, so to speak. So I should be glad that I were sad. Strange enough.
Oh, and you know, when you write music, especially music that has a lot of motion and meaning behind it, I mean, when you're able to have some kind of something personal to be able to attach to it and be able to write a song about it, I think through that fan perspective, even if they don't know everything that's going on behind it, there's something about the notes, there's something about the lyrics, there's something about the entire presentation that really makes that song stand out and, you know, really pull on your heartstrings. And this is one of those songs that does that. And just knowing that was the case, and, you know, just trying to grieve through such a sad events as that, and being able to write such a beautiful song out of it, it shows that there can be beauty in tragedy.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, with that in mind, I mean, obviously it's got an amazing ballad like that, but, you know, the first taste of the new Falconer album was Desert Dreams, being able to hear that last week. How did it go about being able to release this as a single?
Well, ask Metalblade. They asked me if I knew of any good first single, and I just said that I'm too involved with it, so pick one new. And I knew when you say that to a German, he's going to pick the fastest song on the album. Of course they did. So maybe a tad too many bass drums on that song for my personal taste, but it really sounds like Falconer. But the second single is going to be one of the best songs from the album. And I think that song's going to be a bit more representative for the album, and it's going to be Kings and Queens.
Oh,
the first
I'm glad
album
to hear
I actually wrote for the album.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was really going to hope that was going to be a single, because it feels like such a strong track. And yeah, just like you said, that is a great representation of the album without giving everything away.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always said that the choruses in songs are the most important stuff, and I mean the chorus in Kings and Queens is cheesy and good, just like a chorus should be. It's perfect. It's what you're gonna whistle to the rest of the day.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, from the very first time I heard the beginning all the way through the end of Kings and Queens, I mean, I've had the melodies stuck in my head over and over again. It's just one of those songs, and you know, the fact that that's going to get some great representation as a single, I'm so happy to see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, with all that in mind, I mean, obviously, having this great collections of songs, and now with it being referred to as From a Dying Ember, like, where did the idea to call it that?
I wanted to have a title that symbolizes the meaning of the album. That's going to be the last, and I felt initially that From a Dying Ember was like saying that it was songs from my dying interest, but it shouldn't affect the quality, because I didn't lose the interest in making music. It was just like the dying flame of Falconer. And our second album was called Chapters from a Veil Forlorn, very medieval sounding title, but the title style is pretty much the same. So it sounded good, and it really had a good meaning. And I think I actually thought about it From a Dying Ember. It's going to be F-A-D-E, fade. Yeah, the band's going to fade away. One more good point being the last album. So you think about that first.
I didn't even think about that until just now. I mean, that is the perfect acronym.
I saw it when I spelled it out. Okay, fade, that's going to work too. Perfect.
Oh, yeah, it's totally going to work. Yeah. So, again with that, I mean, with having this final presentation, being able to have everything together like this, obviously with the music behind it being so strong, where did the album cover come from? Because I feel that's just as strong as the album is.
Yeah, it actually came from Jon Meininghaus, the guy who's painted all our cover albums, and most usually I have a very clear idea what I want as a cover, but this time I actually didn't. I knew the title, and I told him that it's going to be the last album, so yeah, a fire dying out in some kind of way. It's going to be a funeral pyre, or a fire in a forgery just dying out, or a campfire. I didn't really know, but I gave him pretty much free hands, and really, really good looking cover. Maybe a bit too Vikingish for my taste, because we don't really sing about Vikings anyway, but it looks pretty Swedish. I mean, it's gonna go home with the German fans anyway, because they love Vikings.
Oh yeah, and it's funny you bring that up too, because throughout Falconer's entire discography, obviously there's a lot of great nodes of Sweden and Swedish culture, but I never really thought of like any kind of Viking themes or anything like that behind the music, and then being able to see an album cover like this with like that Viking funeral pyre going on there, and that's just, the more that I look at it, and now obviously knowing the news that I know now, I just feel it really is that really perfect way to be able to put a close to Falconer, showing that off, and just like the amazing album cover behind it. I mean, there's so much detail behind it. I love the colors behind it, and I just love the way it looks visually.
Yeah, and if you think of the first album cover from back in 2001, it's the same guy on that cover sitting on the horse, and now it's on the funeral pyre instead, so the Falconer is burning up.
Oh, yeah, I love how that's interconnected like that. I mean, being able to, again, musically, I mean, being able to take all the best parts of Falconer, making it into all new material for Falconer, and then also with the concepts behind it, with the album artwork and everything else that's going on behind that. I mean, being able to see the beginning and the end of the Falconer. I mean, that's just so great to be able to see all of that being intertwined together.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm very proud of the result. And actually, I came to think of one more thing now. The last song on the album, called Rapture, that's actually co-written with my old friend Carl Beckman, who played with me in Mythotin back until 1999, because we tried to make one more Mythotin song, just not to bring back the band or anything, just to release it with a compilation with demo songs and just add one new written song. But none of us really had the interest to actually go through with it. So we wrote the song and then it died out. So I used that song to be a Falconer song. So I rewrote the lyrics and maybe switched the riff or two. But the basic idea is like a Mythotin song, actually.
It's funny you bring that up.
Where we started out.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because I was going to bring that up as well about Rapture. I was going to say it really feels like a great dark song behind it, and I was wondering if there was any connection to like wanting to go back to that style. Now that I'm thinking about it, just like wanting to do something heavier now that Falconer's being put to rest.
Yeah. It was pretty much an idea to make an attempt to make one more Mythotin song just for the fun of it, but it wasn't that fun actually. But the material was quite good, so I reused it. And it was a bit hard to adapt it to Falconer because you had to have a vocal melody. So I tried to switch out a couple of the guitar melodies and do vocal melodies out of them instead. And it sounds a bit strange, but it really sounds like a perfect combination between Falconer and Method 10. And that the last beat part in the middle too just throws everyone off. Just surprises everyone.
Oh yeah, and I love it when Falconer does throw in some blast beats in there. I mean, whether it's off the last album with Black Moon Rising or being able to throw it in here with the last song with Rapture. I mean, I just love when blast beats are done just in the right amount with Falconer, so it's not like it's not overdone, and it can still show off that you can have that kind of speed behind it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to do different kind of things.
Oh, for sure. So with that in mind, I mean, you're paying tribute a little bit here with Mitoten, with Rapture, and with this being the end of Falconer with this album. Have you put any thoughts into what kind of direction or any kind of style that you want to be able to go into going forward?
No, I have no clear picture of it. I just want to try to do something different. I know that I can do metal music, and eventually I will do it in some kind of form, but just now I'm going to try to write maybe a pop song, maybe a house song, just trying out different things just to have fun. Not really any meaning to go anywhere or try to make it into a new project. Just trying to be like 14 and 15 years old again, trying out new stuff, having a fun time. But eventually I will, of course, try to make something more serious. What should we call it? And we'll see what happens. I have no idea whatsoever.
Oh, and there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, the fact that you just want to experiment with like a song or two in a completely different style and just see what you can do with that. And at some point being able to strap on the guitar and play some kind of metal in some kind of capacity again. I mean, it's great to see that you are willing to venture outside of your musical comfort zone and just trying some new stuff out, whether you do something with it or not.
And we'll see if it's going to be good enough. Or, I mean, the chance is that if I'm going to do something new, it's just going to end up like a demo songs on SoundCloud or Bandcamp, and no one will ever hear it anyway. But then I've done something different at least, instead of just safing out with a Falconer because they happen to have a record deal. That's not really the right reason to do it in the future.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah, I'm going back to my teenage years, learning new stuff and going into unknown territory.
Oh yeah, and there's so much that you can do with that now. I mean, especially with the styles that you were talking about. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can approach that, and being able to combine different sounds and instruments and styles together to be able to create something. I think it's really good for the mind. Again, even if you don't do anything with it, just the idea of like being creative with it and seeing what you can do with it to see what it can influence in the future.
Yeah, of course. And I know myself that much that even if I try to do something different, it's gonna sound like me anyway. So, I mean, the Stefan kind of melodies might not really fit into another kind of genre anyway. But I'm going to have fun realizing that myself eventually. And then maybe I'll end up in an industrial project or something in the future with some distorted guitars. I'm always loving distorted guitars, but you've got to have some fun too.
Oh yeah, and that's what music should be about ultimately in the end. You're creating the music that you want to create. You're able to have fun with it. You're able to want to show people out there the kind of music that you're proud to be able to put your name behind. And, whether you're starting off a brand new venture, whether you're putting a final chapter to Falconer in this kind of situation, or whatever happens in the future. If you revisit something, if you do something brand new, whatever the case is, you got to be happy with the music that you're producing. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the first fan of my music. I'm the one who hears it first, and I mean that's pretty much the reason I do music, just to entertain myself. And if it's just gonna end up in my drawer, who cares? I'm just having fun. But I can't really answer anything more about that about the future. We'll just see what happens. I have no clear idea whatsoever.
Oh, and there's nothing wrong with that, too. I mean, being able to...
No.
Oh, yeah, right now, being able to just promote this final Falconer album, being able to have the fans be able to appreciate one more run with Falconer, and then, sometime down the road, just being able to see where things go. I mean, whether it gets released, whether it turns into a full project or band or whatever the case is, I'll be excited to see what you do musically when that happens in the future. But until then, I mean, it's great to be able to hear this amazing final collection from Falconer.
Yeah, I'm so proud that we managed to end on such a high note. For me personally, anyway. And I hope that the fans will not think that we died out in a bad way either. That we really gave them a final really, really good album, because that's the first point, the first idea I really had. Let's make it as good as possible and then die instead of just fading away.
Yeah, and it's just, the more I think about it, the more that it is like really dawning on me. I mean, this feels like for lack of a better term, a very heroic album to be able to end the band on, because there, again, it just like, it goes through so many different kinds of emotions. It goes through so many different styles and speeds and, everything that's going along with it. I mean, it has everything that I love about Falconer, and then being able to end with Rapture the way that it does. I mean, again, now knowing everything I know about it, being able to think about everything in my head now when it comes to like the track list, the album art, the singles that are going to be released from it. I mean, this really does feel like Falconer cannot possibly end on a better note.
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
it's the best I could do, and we as a band, and finally we got some keyed fiddle and some bagpipes into the music too. So we waited about 20 years for that, but it finally happened. And everything happened at the 11th hour.
Oh, and I was so happy to hear that too. I mean, that was a really nice welcome surprise when I heard that kick in for the first time.
Yeah, it really enhances the melodies in the right kind of way. I knew that I had a couple of really Swedish folk melodies, and I knew what kind of instrument really was needed to make it finally happen. And the same with the more medieval kind of melodies. I mean, the bagpipe, who the fuck plays a bagpipe in the 2000s? Finally, so we didn't need to use shitty samples or anything, because you can always tell that it is samples. It's just too good. I mean, bagpipes they don't sound good, and neither does keyed fiddle. It just sounds right. It shouldn't sound good.
Oh yeah, it's so true, especially when it comes to something like bagpipes. I mean, having that real authentic sound behind it. I mean, it's almost impossible to be able to replicate it in any other form and get that same sound as compared to actually being able to record a real bagpipe.
Yeah.
Oh, I think with that, being able to talk about bagpipes, I think that's a great note to be able to end this interview. And again, I thank you so much for taking the time to be able to talk to me again. I mean, it's great to be able to catch up after all this time and be able to talk about the final album from Falconer, From a Dying Ember, coming out the 26th of June from Metal Blade. I had a whole sort of questions that I had to just throw out the window once I realized that this was going to be the final interview. And I just wanted to be able to have this as authentic of a reaction as possible, because it is my real reaction to learning this news. And it's just like, it's so great to be able to talk to you about it, and knowing that this really is the right decision for you personally. I'm sure it will be for the rest of the band as well, being able to see what they do in their endeavors. And if there had to be an end to Falconer, I'm glad it is From a Dying Ember.
Yeah, me too. It's just perfect. And I think that most of us at least will continue making music in some kind of way, but I mean, most of the other guys in the band haven't spent that much time on the band as I've done. We pretty much meet up when it's time to rehearse for the new album, but I spend each week with Falconer writing the music and so on. So I think will have less impact on the other guys' life than on mine.
Oh,
but, I mean, they have music on the side. Matthias does his theaters, and Magnus plays in another band, and I don't actually think that Karsten or Jimmy actually have another band going right now, but things will happen in the future, I'm sure.